Hello, boys and girls. This is Miss Anton again. We are going to be reading a story today called Enemy Pie, and we are learning about how to recount a story and determine the central message and how it connects to the key details. So to recount a story, you need to do it by telling it in your own words, and you need to include the setting, the characters, the problem, the solution, and what happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the story. Now, remember, central message is the lesson that the author is teaching you. So to figure out the lesson or the central message in a story, you need to know what is the problem, what does the character do about the problem, what lesson does the character learn, and what lesson does the author want you to learn. So we have some words to know. The first one is the word squinted, which is looking at something with partly closed eyes. So you look at the little girl, her eyes are partly closed. We have the word satisfied, which means she's pleased with something. So if you look at the picture, we have a mom with a little girl just giving her a puppy, and the little girl looks super satisfied she's got a puppy. We have the word boomerang. A boomerang is a curved, flat hunting tool that can be thrown so that it returns to you. So if you look at the little boy, he threw it, and if you notice, it turned around and is coming back to him. We have the word panicked, which is to have such strong fear that you couldn't think or act in a normal way. So if you look at those girls, they are panicking, they are not acting normal. We have the word crumpled, which is just wrinkled. So think of when you take a piece of paper and ball it up and crumple it up. Relieved, which is relaxed because something unpleasant stopped or didn't happen. So if you look at the little smiley face guy, he was sweating, but now he's like, oof, thank goodness. Alrighty, here are the words in Spanish. Okay, setting a purpose for reading. Remember when you are reading to ask yourself, what is the author trying to teach me? What important events happened at the beginning, middle, and end? What is the character's point of view? What is the character's motivations, and what is the central message? Okay, so now we have our story. Our story is called Enemy Pie. That is our title. And we have a picture that includes a little boy with a pie, has leaves and rocks and worms in it. And it says, "For my best enemy." I'm interested now. Okay, what can you do about a kid you don't like? Here's a tasty idea. By Derek Munson, art by Tara Callahan King. Think and read, making inferences. In this story, the narrator learns something important about enemies and friends. See if you can infer or figure out what it is. So remember, the word infer just means to figure something out. So when a reader uses context clues, the character's feelings and actions to understand the text. Okay, let's start reading. I'm super excited. It should have been a perfect summer. My dad helped me build a tree house. My sister was at camp. And I was on the best baseball team in town. It should have been a perfect summer, but it wasn't. It was all good until Jeremy Ross moved into the neighborhood. I didn't like Jeremy. He laughed when he struck me out. He had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't invited. Jeremy Ross was the only person on my enemy list. I never even had an enemy list before, but he came along, and I needed one. I hung it up in my treehouse where Jeremy Ross was not allowed. Dad understood stuff like enemies. He told me that when he was my age, he had enemies too, but he knew a way to get rid of them. He pulled an old recipe book off the kitchen shelf. Inside was a scrap of paper with faded writing. Dad squinted at it. "Enemy pie," he said, satisfied. So why doesn't the narrator like Jeremy? Well, he doesn't like him because he laughs at him when he gets struck out. And he had a party on his trampoline, and I wasn't invited. I wouldn't like him either. I wasn't invited. That's not very nice. So we have some characters. We have Dad, we have Sister, and we have Jeremy Ross. We also have the narrator, which is who the I is, okay? So that is still a character. Okay, So right here, this is our problem. Our problem is that we don't like Jeremy Ross because he always laughs at me and he didn't invite me to his party. So, and then he has a tree house and he has that's where his enemy list is, and that is where Jeremy Ross is not allowed. Right here, this is our resolution because Dad knows a way to get rid of enemies. Okay, let's keep reading. What's in it? That's our heading. You may be wondering, what exactly is an enemy pie? I was too. But Dad said the recipe was so secret he couldn't tell me. I begged him to tell me something. Anything. I will tell you this, he said. Enemy pie is the fastest known way to get rid of enemies. I think that is super important. He is telling him this is a key event. He is telling us that this is the fastest way to get rid of them. Okay. This got my mind working. What kinds of things, disgusting things, would I put into a pie for an enemy? I brought Dad weeds, but he shook his head. I brought earthworms, but he didn't need those. I gave him the gum I'd been chewing. He gave it right back. I went out to play alone. I listened to the sounds of my dad making enemy pie. I tried to imagine how horrible it must smell. Instead, I smelled something really, really good coming from our kitchen. I was confused. That's a feeling. Okay, so he is sitting here thinking, he's trying to think of how bad it's going to smell. But does it smell bad? No, it smells really, really good. Okay, and that's why he's confused. He's like, wait, if it smells so good, how is it for enemies? Let's keep reading. I went in to ask what was wrong. Enemy pie shouldn't smell this good. But Dad was smart. If enemy pie smelled bad, your enemy would never eat it, he said. He pulled the pie out of the oven. It looked good enough to eat. But still, I wasn't sure how enemy pie worked. What exactly did it do to enemies? Maybe it made their hair fall out? I asked Dad, but he wouldn't tell me. Okay, so I think it's really important that we look at this. His dad pulled out the pie from the oven and it looks good enough to eat. So even he wants to eat it. Okay. While the pie cooled, he filled me in on my job. There is one part of enemy pie that I can't do. You need to spend a day with your enemy. Even worse, you have to be nice to him. That's the only way enemy pie can work. Are you sure you want to go through with this? It sounded horrible. It was scary, but it was worth a try. I just had to spend one day with Jeremy Ross. Then he'd be out of my hair for the rest of my life. I knocked on his door. So what job does the dad give the narrator? Well, he says that you need to spend an entire day with your enemy. And not only, but you have to be nice to him. Okay, that's interesting. No enemies allowed. It's another heading. When Jeremy opened the door, he seemed surprised. I was nervous. That's a feeling. Can you play? I asked. He looked confused. I'll ask my mom, he said. He came back holding his shoes. We rode bikes and played on the trampoline. Jeremy's mom made us lunch. After lunch, we went to my house. It was strange. I was kind of having fun with my enemy. But I couldn't tell Dad that, since he worked so hard on the enemy pie. Jeremy knew how to throw a boomerang. He threw it, and it came right back to him. I threw it, and it went into my backyard. When we climbed over the fence to find it, the first thing Jeremy noticed was my treehouse. Can we go in it? He asked. I knew he was going to ask that, but he was my top person, the only person on my enemy list, and enemies aren't allowed in my treehouse. But he did teach me to throw a boomerang, and he did let me play on his trampoline. He wasn't being a very good enemy. Okay, so right here, it was strange. I'm kind of having fun with my enemy. Uh-oh, he hasn't even had the enemy pie yet. Okay. But now he wants to go in the treehouse. But he's not allowed, right? Because he's the top person, the only person on that enemy list. So he's not allowed. Okay. Okay, I said, but hold on. I climbed up first and tore the enemy list off the wall. We played games until my dad called us down for dinner. Dad made macaroni and cheese, my favorite. Jeremy's too. Maybe Jeremy Ross wasn't so bad after all. I was beginning to think that we should just forget about enemy pie. So why does the narrator tear down his enemy list? Well, he tears it off because they're beginning to have fun. He's liking Jeremy Ross now, right? So now he's thinking maybe he's not so bad after all. Losing a best enemy. But after dinner, Dad brought out the pie and cut it into slices. Dad, I said, it's sure nice having a new friend in the neighborhood. I was trying to tell him that Jeremy was no longer my enemy, but Dad only smiled and nodded. I think he thought I was just pretending. Wow, Jeremy said. My dad never makes pies like this. Suddenly, I panicked. I didn't want Jeremy to eat enemy pie. He was my friend. Jeremy, don't eat it. I think it's poisonous or something. Jeremy crumpled his eyebrows and looked at me funny. I felt relieved. I had saved his life. I was a hero. If it's so bad, Jeremy asked, why has your dad already eaten half of it? I looked at my dad. He was eating enemy pie. Good stuff, was all Dad said. I watched them eat enemy pie. Dad was laughing. Jeremy was happily eating. And neither of them was losing any hair. It seemed safe enough, so I took a tiny taste. Enemy pie was delicious. Afterward, Jeremy invited me to play on his trampoline in the morning. I still don't know how to make enemy pie. I still wonder if enemies hate it or if their hair falls out, but I don't know if I'll ever get an answer because I lost my best enemy. So what happens when Jeremy eats the enemy pie? Well, let's see. He eats it and he loves it, right? So it was delicious. He's eating it. Dad's eating it. He's looking over and his dad's eating enemy pie and he's like, what is happening right now, right? He's confused. He's thinking that he saved Jeremy's life, but Jeremy's confused and they're eating it and neither of them are losing any hair and it was good. Okay, so the next day, Jeremy invited him to play. So now they're not enemies anymore. And this kid still doesn't know how to make enemy pie. He doesn't know what's going on. But in the end, he says, but I don't know if I'll ever get my answer because I just lost my best enemy. Okay, so what is the central message of this story? Well, this very last sentence was, he never got his answer because he lost his best enemy. So your central message here, the lesson, is that you can always make friends with your enemies. Okay? Alrighty. So, for fun, you can write a letter from the narrator to his dad telling him his feelings about Jeremy changed of enemy pie. Go ahead and try that for fun, guys. Okay. So I know you're all anxiously waiting. Today's mystery word is checkers. Alrighty, you guys are ready to answer your exit ticket? Good luck!